What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex. In this video, I want to talk about Yu-Gi-Oh! The Early Days Collection, give you guys my very early impressions. I was finally able to fire the bad boy up, and as you know, I got the game physically, or maybe you don't know, but I just told you now. I think it's very important. Add it to the game collection. I'm trying to build up some physical Yu-Gi-Oh! Games of the past, so, I thought, okay, well, let's just start with the current one right now. So got it physically for the Nintendo Switch. Haven't put too much time, and I really focused, I think, primarily on the newer of the old games. So, you got games going back into the 90s, and, I fired it up just to kind of see what it looked like, and, I've seen the trailers, my feed is kind of like Yu-Gi-Oh! Oriented right now, so I've seen a lot of people Let's Playing it and just, like, trying out the different games. I've seen a lot of them, even the ones that are not so typical Yu-Gi-Oh!, right? They're trying out different types of game mechanics and whatnot. They all look very interesting, and I want to try out all of the games at some point. I really try to focus on, okay, let's just do the card battling. Let's really try to get into it. And for what it's worth, I mean, in the 3 games, which was Reshift of Destruction and the World Championship games, the last 2, those are really the 3 that I've tried, and haven't gone very far in them. But in terms of what I wanted to do for this video was kind of just put the stamp of what I thought this game was going to be, and say that although I haven't, played hundreds of hours or anything yet, it is exactly what I thought it was going to be. And I think it's for better and for worse, right? I think I saw a couple different reviews of this thing, one in particular of Retro Rebound from Mr. Matty Plays, and he kind of had a similar theme where it's like, these games are not perfect, right? And that's kind of, I think, where I'm coming from, and where I did come from going into it. I would say maybe that makes me just a little bit different from the other people out there. I was talking this thing up leading into the game releasing, but the one thing I kept saying is like, number one, I haven't played, a bunch of these games, right? So it's me really going in for the first time. Number two, I'm not expecting these things to be the greatest re-release of all time. So, remaster, remake, whatever you want to call it. I'm not expecting them to overhaul it, 100%. And I'm also not expecting the games themselves, the legitimate games, to have been all that amazing. You have, even though the collection only spans, 6-7 years, I think, in terms of the first game to the last game, in this collection, I think it's 6-7 years in real time. And in that time, you were experiencing Yu-Gi-Oh! Really taking form. So you go back to those early games, the rules, what rules? Not only what rules, but you actually look at those games, and I would say even the later ones, the World Championship ones, there's a difficulty, at least for me, just reading it. I will give them credit for doing it. And at the end of the day, that's the main thing I want to say. I have enjoyed my time. It is the game I thought it was going to be, and it's the game to that degree that I wanted, right? I wanted a game that was able to put everything together, make it very accessible, and make you just able to play these games. That's literally it. That's what I wanted, and that's what it gives. Now, does it do anything like above and beyond that? Well, the games are still the games. So the earlier ones, I mean, granted, okay, I haven't been into the Yu-Gi-Oh! Fandom in a very long time. I grew up, I would say, in the early 2000s, maybe mid-2000s, actually, by the time I really started getting engaged in Yu-Gi-Oh! So there were kind of rules. There were kind of fundamentals. And then when things kind of got too crazy, later on in the 2000s, that's kind of where I pieced out. So my era was very specific. And the early days, I mean, it's kind of getting into that era, but like not all the way, right? Like the latest games on there are starting to develop the strategy, starting to develop the rules of the actual dueling. The earlier ones, it's just, take your best shot. Also, good luck reading it. Good luck understanding where the boards don't even have like slots to them. And I mean, I'm a simpleton, okay? I need help. I need my hand held for a lot of these games. When I fired up some of these earlier games, right, and it has you put a card, that just the way the graphic is presented to you and the knowledge that's supposed to be conveyed to you, it's not good, right? It's just not I mean, at the end of the day. And then how do I even put the card, on the freaking board? So, those things, I don't know how far I could ever get at some of these games. And I think, again, that's kind of the point. That's kind kind of what I was thinking it was going to be going into this game. I want to try them all, but I am not fooling myself into thinking going in that I was going to be able to enjoy and 100% complete, beat every duelist in every single one of these games. It's just not going to happen, right? And also, I mean, you go into them and like your starter decks are generally the same for all of them, so it's almost like a Pokemon type thing. Like there's a learning type thing in the beginning of all of them that just kind of repeat, especially when you're playing 10 plus games one right after the other. They just stack, they just become almost the same starting point each time, I guess, depending on which game. But that's pretty much it. I mean, some of them are very hard to read, some of them are very hard to understand. I don't know how anybody did it back then and does it to this day, but at the same time, it's Yu-Gi-Oh! There will always be a joy in building a deck and facing off against it. And I mean, like the art, especially the later games, the art is awesome. In terms of like the graphic of one card takes out the other, nothing too special there, but there was something really fun to just pulling cards, seeing what you pulled, building your deck out, getting the cards that you want, and just literally playing the game and playing it, across, I think, 14 different games. There's something special to that. At the same time, these games are not perfect. They are severely flawed, whether it's because of the technology, whether it's because of the time period and the limitations that Yu-Gi-Oh! Placed on it, right? Like the actual what was going on. This stuff wasn't figured out yet, in some ways. So I understand that. I get that. The game does what it needs to do to me, and it's what I've been saying in a lot of these videos. I wanted this just to kind of show that these type of Yu-Gi-Oh! Games can still kind of hang out, have that preservation, and now can we get to some of those PS2, Xbox era type games that had, I mean, some of them had some rules. Some of them, like Duelist of the Roses, follows like its own thing, right? Like there were still games that were experimental. You don't just need to have Yu-Gi-Oh! Games that are just like flat out dueling and you just stick to it. You got other games there as well, but at least you can read them. That's one part to those PS2 era ones. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.